Let's keep going solving inequalities. Your teachers told me that some of you are struggling with the flip the sign rule. So let's take a look at a couple examples where you have to flip the sign. Today we're also going to be graphing our inequalities on number lines. So let's take a look. In this inequality, this reads negative 2y is less than negative 9. I always like to find the side of my inequality that has the variable. So on the left side of my equal sign, I can see my variable is y, and I have negative 2y. I want to isolate my variable or get y by itself, and I can see that there aren't any constants on this side, there's only a variable, so I don't need to move anything over here. I'm just going to divide both sides of my inequality by negative 2, because dividing by negative 2 is the inverse of multiplying. Negative 2 divided by negative 2 is 1. I'm going to cross that off and just bring down my 1y. I just divided by a negative. The rule is pretty simple, guys. You just have to memorize it. If you divide by a negative number, flip your inequality. So right now, this says less than. When I rewrite it, it has to be greater than. This is one of those little details you have to pay attention to, because if you don't get it, it's going to make the problem totally wrong. Negative 9 divided by negative 2. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. Negative 9 divided by negative 2 isn't going to be a whole number. It's going to have a decimal in it, and that's okay. But let's divide it out. I'm going to ignore my negatives. Divide 9 by 2. 2 goes into 9 4 times, because 2 times 4 is 8. I'm left with 1. I'm out of numbers, so I need to grab a decimal and bring it up. This is some benchmark review for you. I promise it'll help. 2 goes into 10. 5 times. So that means negative 9 divided by negative 2 is 4.5. It is okay if there's a decimal in your answer. Last piece is let's graph this. You're going to do this on your prove it today. I always just start with my important number. My most important number is the place where my circle is going to go, and that's at 4.5. So I'm going to write 4.5. And I know 4.5 is right in the middle of 4 and 5. My circle is going to be an open circle because this says greater than but not equal to, which means 4.5 is not part of the solution set. And then y is greater than 4.5, so I'm going to shade to the right because on my number line, that's where the numbers are greater than 4.5. I know that was a lot of steps. Let's take a look at another one. 12 is greater than negative 4x minus 8. First things first, I like to draw lines around my inequality so I know this is the left side, this is the right side. I can see my variable is on the right side of the inequality, so that's where I'm going to start working. I have constants that I can combine, that's the negative 8 and the 12, and I can see I'm trying to move the negative 8 across my inequality, which means I need to use inverse operations. The inverse of negative 8 is positive 8, so I'm going to add 8 on the left and right side. 12 plus 8 is 20. I haven't divided or multiplied by a negative, so I'm just going to bring my sign down as it is. I haven't used negative 4x, and negative 8 plus 8 is 0, so I can just scratch that off. I don't need it. Now take a look. I'm left with 20 is greater than negative 4x. Negative 4 is squished next to x, which means multiply, so to get rid of it, I need to divide by negative 4. Ding, 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 I'm dividing by a negative, so guess what I have to do? I'm going to have to flip my sign. 20 divided by negative 4 is negative 5. My sign was greater than, I need to flip it to be less than, and this will be x. Do you see how my variable over here is on the right side? I always rewrite my inequality with my variable on the left side so that I have an easier time graphing it. It's a lot easier to graph x is greater than negative 5 than it is to say negative 5 is less than x. So if the variable's on the right side, rewrite it so that it looks like this. Now let's graph it. My important number is negative 5, and I know my circle is going to be open because x cannot equal negative 5, and x needs to be greater than negative 5. The numbers that are greater than negative 5 are to the right, so I'm going to shade in my arrow to the right. Last one. 9c plus 2 is greater than 29. My variable is c, so I'm going to work on the left side of my inequality. I have constants that I can combine, and I'm trying to move negative 2 across my inequality, which means I need inverse operations. The inverse of positive 2 is negative 2. I'm left with 9c. I haven't multiplied or divided by a negative, so my sign stays the same. 29 minus 2 is 27. Last piece. To get c by itself, I'll divide by 9 on both sides. I'm dividing by a positive number, so I don't have to do anything to my sign. I just leave it alone. C is greater than 3. Last piece, let's graph it, then you'll practice. My important number is 3. My circle is going to be open because c cannot equal 3. It says c is greater. The numbers that are greater are to the right, so I'm going to shade in to the right. Your turn to practice. Don't forget the flip rule.